Oh, we're doing another one. It's not the same one. I wish we were doing this one again. This one makes real power, but it's okay because these serve a purpose and they are fun, and we're just trying to make them not slow. So that's what I was telling you about the sheet. The sheet that I work on, speedo's off. I can't fix that. Nameless catback sounds good. We got 2.5 liter, not a lot of information because really not a lot's done. These are pretty stock. They just have, you know, the 2.5 fuel pump and injectors. I'm not sure what deleted stock headers means, but yeah, we're gonna pull this thing on the dyno and do some baseline first, and then, come on, you. Why do you? There we go. I just give it a little wiggle with my knee because I got my other hand on the camera. Ooh. Yeah, these things start with like a big pop. Zoom out. There we go. Sorry, I had her all zoomed in. Okay, so again, we got cool buttons. I don't know what they do. We got a whip. Where'd the whip go? Now, if you have a whip button, you should have a nay-nay button, I'm just gonna say. But without a nay-nay, ooh, we got RGBs. Cool stuff. All right. Sorry, let's get on the dyno. Yeah, this one's surgy just like the last one. I don't know if you can hear that or not. When I just give it a little bit of throttle, it's like, it's like the roller coaster of, oh geez, throttle. It's probably not going to convey so well through the camera. Ooh, there's some rubbing. All right. Well, on to the dyno we go. Cool, we're in. PRE Racing, that's where the magic happens. We'll Tune for Tacos, just my personal channel, but everything happens here at PRE. The e-brake apparently doesn't e-brake so well in this car. Huh. Well, this one's actually a Crosstrek, I believe. It's not an Impreza. Yeah, this one's actually a Crosstrek. We're on the dyno, got the logger going, the dyno is running. Let's do a pull. This is a baseline. The car has not been tuned. I just have the logger running and the map. That's actually the map from the last one. Oh, it's mad. What are we mad about? Seatbelts? I don't want to wear my seatbelt. Tuner trick, plug in the passenger seatbelt. Haha. Well, you're still mad. Oh, it's mad the passenger is not in the car either. Well, crap. Apparently, that laptop, the brick that it is enough to set off the passenger dinger. Hey, but there isn't a driver dinger, so that's fun. Can't remember what simulated gear we like on these. Let's just try 2. They're simulated gears, they're not even real because it's a CVT. So let's try a second and see what happens here. Second was a good call. This one's quite a bit richer than the last one. It's not clean out the top like that other one was, so we're gonna see what we have for power. Yeah, this looks a lot better. Woof! Not great. 115 horse, 135 torque. So we're gonna do another baseline, see if it comes up, and look at the log. So here we are in the data log. Now this is a different logger than I was using in the last video. This is the logger that actually comes with this software. You can see we did have some knock, and I heard that while the car was running. It was a little bit of an audible ping right in there. As we scroll down in this data set, we got engine speed, mass air, short-term trim. We're actually adding a little fuel, which is interesting. And we have some learned ignition timing. Yep. Interesting. So this doesn't look terrible. We're hitting our targets. We don't have a bunch of trim in there. I don't know why our target EQ, this must be closed loop target. And then our VVT advance, but the baselines are pretty low. So this does have bigger tires than the other one, which is going to affect the baseline numbers. So let's see what we can do here. So you can see there's a lot of stuff, a lot of tables. And we got to populate a bunch of them, but the first one, I'm told this has the 2.5 injectors, so we're going to go ahead and set this up to be the same as the 2015 Outback, which I can do if I open up Carrie's tune, because I have these values in here. Finding these values is not as simple as you would think. There's not just like a database that you can access and has all this great information in it. So there it is. So now we can come in here. Now these are very different tune files, so I can't just copy the one tune to the other. But we have 336.95 for my flow scaler. And this, and then my battery offset, copy, paste, there we go. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and just flash those changes that we just made there. We're just gonna go ahead and flash these changes and see what happens with this. And that's the tuning process. We change what we know, and then we see what the engine wants based on the data logs. And now we're flashing. One would hope. So these are about a 4-minute flash. It's going a little quicker. So I'm not going to make you watch that, but we're going to flash it, we're going to start it, see what happens. And we're in. Let's go ahead and do a poll here. So now it's real lean. It's probably closer to what it's supposed to be. Are about the same, so I'll show you that in just 1 second. Like hell I will. Alright, so we're green here for this pole. Let me clear off. So green is right now, so we lost a little torque. That's not surprising. The dynamic advance is probably lower, and we are just kind of leaner everywhere. So what we got to do now is actually tune it. We scaled the injectors, which made it not quite as rich up top, but it's definitely too lean because, well, we got a bigger motor and some other stuff. So now we're going to actually tune the car. So we had no knocking correction in that run at all. Everything else looks pretty normal. We do have a fuel trim of about 10%. I think I'm just going to populate that 10% in to the entire MAF scale. I know that the MAF is stock on this, but this engine is going to have different volumetric efficiency, so the amount of air that it needs is going to be a little bit different. Let's see here. Do we have MAF voltage though? I don't know if it was logging that or not. I didn't go through and set up the logger. I was literally just using the default list. So I have grams per second. I can translate that in to the MAF voltage here. So grams per second, let's find the MAF. I'm not going to show you guys everything I'm doing in this tune, but I do want to show you some of the basics here. So where is our mass airflow meter? Sensor scaling, AF sensors, MAP sensors. Here we go, MAF sensor scaling. This is our MAF sensor scale. And we wanted to look for 56 on the old grams per second. Right about there. Somewhere in between there. We'll just do 10% here. Get the command in here. So there's 10%. And then we're going to smooth it out through the rest of this. And so on. And so on. And whoops. And so on. So I'm just going to go ahead and do that back. Whole time. That's much better. Best pull yet, we're already coming up in the world. And all we've done is fix the air fuel. So if you look, we're actually a little richer than that first one up top. I bet that's pretty close to our target though. And that's the idea, is you want to be right on your targets. Then you start modifying your targets to what the engine wants. And that's what tuning is. It's all about finding what the engine wants. It really doesn't have a whole lot to do with what the car is or what, you know, 2.5, 2 liter, whatever. It's just you're trying to find out what the engine wants and you're trying to give it to it through the calibration. Now for tuning cam timing, this is a quite complicated thing. I've already gone through and changed all those tables, but I can kind of show you one. So in the exhaust angle, we made some small changes. What I've gone through in the way you tune a cam table is you find where you're wide open throttle. You make a change, so you run like 0, you do a pull, you run 5, you do a pull, you run 10, you do a pull, you run 15, you do a pull, and then you take all those graphs, put that back at 10 because that's where I want it, and then you take all those graphs and you overlay them in the dyno chart, and you see at what RPM each of the different cam positions made peak power. And then that's how you build your curve. But and then intake cam is kind of the same deal. You want to go through. These are actually, I've only changed the values here, which was all for kind of emissions and whatnot related stuff. I haven't actually changed the intake cam yet because I basically just got all the exhaust set at 10, and then I'm going to start testing the intakes. This is a process. It's going to take some time. I'm not going to show it all because it just takes time. Done a lot of work. Let's see. Make some power. Oh yeah, that sounds so much better. Definitely took some doing. Baseline 116, torque 137, pretty lean. Bam. 133 horse and 147 peak torque. Oops, let me unzoom here. That's a weird zoom. Anyway, you can see peak for peak, 10 foot-pounds, but look right here. That's down there at 3,600. We have 21 foot-pounds of torque increase and 15 horsepower. You tell me you're not going to feel that. Oh, also up here, up at the higher RPMs, we went from 111 to 127 horsepower, so pretty significant gains up top as well. Should be a ripper. Let's compare this one to the other one that we did just the other day. Let me see if I can find it, because it's an Impreza, not a Crosstrek. Blah, blah, blah. Impreza 2012. Alright, tune. Let's see. Pretty similar. You can see, obviously, same engine, same tuner. But the other one carried out the top just a little bit more. And the reasons for that are, well, realistically, those guys right there. The higher the mile an hour, the higher the RPM, the more that the big meats are gonna hold you back. But should still be a ripper. Not bad, not bad. Not bad for a Crosstrek at least. Typically, just so everybody knows, let me pull up another Crosstrek. Let's pull up another lifted one, just so you can see the comparison here on these things. Let's do a 19 baseline lifted. For 107, 108 horsepower, and look at the complete lack of torque. Just none at all. Let me clear off some of these other ones. Let's do big lift for big lift. There we go. So we are 108 to 147, 108 to 133. So a tune and a bigger motor equals huge gains. I mean, look at the torque gain here. 103 foot-pounds to 147 foot-pounds. That's just monstrous. So, Crosstrek doing some work. PRE Racing, Rally Tech, come get your Crosstrek tunes. We have them getting dialed in left and right. I'm just sitting here in some kind of Nissan waiting for the customer to call me back, and figured I'd finish up the nerdy factor of this video. So I wanted to talk for just a minute about a couple of the issues with these FB25 swaps into the FB20 engine calibration. So as I was tuning, I was adding fuel, and in my closed loop fuel targets, or open loop fuel targets, let's get here. Let's find it. So my closed loop fuel targets, these are compensations, but there is basically a load-based closed loop. So this means that while it's trying to close loop, it's going to run close to Stoich. And then even the closed loop system, which is where you have feedbacks, is going to start to enrich the car. But there is a delay timer, and when that delay timer is hit, the car drops into what's called open loop fueling. And when it goes into open loop fueling, you get, where's my open loop maps? Why? Sorry. Primary open loop. There we go. You have your primary open loop, and these are more of what your actual targets are. Now, as I was changing these targets, and I was saying the idea is you use your MAF scale and your injector scale to combine together to try to hit your targets. As I was enriching, I wasn't actually hitting my targets, and I was like, I wonder why I'm not hitting my targets. Seemed kind of weird. I don't know why my printer's freaking out. So I started digging, and I noticed that I was having a weird, basically my engine load itself didn't really seem like it was counting up. And I noticed that the engine load was quite high. So there is an engine load limit table here, and the factory calibration, let me open this. 21B or E, here it is. So this is the original factory cal. Sorry, this computer is quite slow. In this one, engine load Accel pedal requested torque. Engine load limit. You can see we're limited to about 1.3 grams per revolution. So what was happening, let me open my logger files. Alright, when I open my log file, one of the later logs on the dyno, man, nothing's set up right. Engine speed, engine load. You can see our load number here is hitting up in the 1.4s, 1.5 even. We peaked at 1.53 grams per revolution. So that is what it took for the engine load to actually hit, let me see if I have AF sensor, yeah I do, to actually hit our target air fuels here. You can see we're in the 12s now. There we go. It's actually just a hair rich there, which is fine. So we're hitting our targets currently, and that's at 1.4 load. So if we find one of the earlier run files from the car, I told you I did a bunch of runs. Let's find it. That was on the 22nd. We need the 21st. Early. This is probably the first. This is probably it. This is probably the very first run that I did on this car on the dyno. Let's see what we had for engine load. So engine speed, engine load. See there? We are hitting very low amounts of load, 1.27. And this was on the stock injector scaling. And so it wasn't able to calculate the load correctly. And so that's why our air fuel was so lean, 1309. And it claimed it was hitting 12.0 up the top, and that's what I said. It did enrich because it had those big injectors. But once you scaled back the injectors, what we'll notice here, which is going to be the third run file, this one here. You guys said you wanted it nerdy. I asked you today in the story if you wanted it nerdy, and you said yes. Now you can see we're still only at 1.25 load, which was the limit in that calibration. So because our limit here was limited to 1.3, it couldn't generate enough load in order to properly fuel. So now, like I said, we have big load limits and we can get the correct amount of fuel out the top. So that's why even putting those bigger injectors in to try to kind of offset things, while it did help on this calibration more than the last calibration, the Impreza calibration, it still just isn't, because you're hitting these limits because there's just more airflow through this engine. So that's the slow and nerdy version of the reason why you can't just slap those parts in and expect it to run great. The long and nerdy version is there's just a lot going on in here that all needs to be changed. And that's what we do. So I hope this video helped people kind of understand what the process is and why it's important, even though these cars aren't making big power, why it's still really important to tune them and why it's necessary to tune them, and why it's something that you should do even if it feels like, well, it's only going to make a little bit of power. And I mean, we picked up 20 plus horsepower, which, you know, today I tuned a 2020 Mustang GT and the guy picked up 25 horsepower. Now that was 25 horsepower on 420, so he went from 423 to 455. I guess that's 30 horse. But that's, you know, that's a gain, but percentage wise, picking up 30 horse on a 450 horsepower car is not going to feel anywhere near as big of a difference as picking up 30 horse or 20 horse on a 110 horsepower car, 120. So it's definitely something that people should do, and the cost isn't that high for what kind of gains you're going to get. There's no part you can bolt on your car that's going to pick up the kind of power that you're going to gain off of a tune on one of these things, aside from like a turbo kit or a supercharger kit. But even that, then you absolutely are going to have to tune it. So yeah, that's what I have for you guys today. Please, you know, this video is not not flashy and exciting, but it is important, and I hope that people are getting some information so that they can keep these cars doing cool stuff. And I got to get back to figuring out some information on this GTR so I can get it sorted out for the customer. Yeah, I tune all kinds of stuff, GTRs, Mustangs. My day today was a GTR, a Mustang, a BRZ, and that's been it. So there was something else. Oh, a 240, like 240 SX. So busy day. No Subarus today, I guess. So we're just going to talk about them instead. But thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys soon.